This is a video podcast of lifechurch.tv.
Well, welcome out to week number 2 of our podcast for the Mind Your Own Business series at Life Church. We are so excited about this podcast because we're able to provide you with supplemental information from the weekend messages to really be able to sink your teeth into to mind our own business the way God would want us to do. Well, Craig, let's dive in a little bit and talk about, if you could, let's just review real quick. We're going to review about last week. If you'll remember, 75% of the people live paycheck to paycheck. 75% of the people. Absolutely. That's just, that's a scary place to be, and many of you know what that feels like. If you fail to plan, that means you plan to fail. Got to get a plan.
So we're going to start working on a plan.
Absolutely. And here's a staggering statistic that Craig talked about last week in the message. But for every $1.22, for every $1 earned, people spend $1.22.
Yeah, that was last year. That was a record that just last year Americans spent $1.22 for every $1 earned, which is, you think about that, and that is, that's causing divorces, bankruptcies, tension, fights, panic, and, we cannot sustain that kind of living.
Absolutely. It doesn't take any kind of a financial analysis to realize that boat's not going to float very
long. So we're going to attack that. The key verse that really would drive this week is Proverbs 21:5. The plans of the diligent lead to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty. So rather than just living by the seat of our pants, we're going to create a plan. And that's a little bit about what we're going to talk about today in this podcast.
Okay. Can you just review a little bit from this last weekend, what you talked about and what some of our high points are?
Yeah, main points from this last weekend. First of all, we're talking about delayed gratification, that we're going to learn to say no to some things just for a little while so we can say yes to whatever God calls us to do for the rest of our lives. And that's the vision I really hope people get, that if we just say no for a little while and have some delayed gratification, sacrifice some things, the rest of our lives can be different forever and ever. So we built that premise. Then we talked about really specifically 3 things that we need to do in making our business plan. God has given us a business, our personal finances, and the first thing that we talked about was building the Oh No Fund. Remember, the problem is some people call it a Oh Something Else Fund, and that's not good. So this is the Oh No Fund, and that is for emergencies because things break, and what we're going to do is we're going to put aside $1,000, find it, earn it, sell something, eat macaroni and cheese, clip coupons, walk your neighbor's dog, scoop your neighbor's dog poop for $1, do whatever you can to get $1,000. And that's where we're going to start. Then we talked about eliminating overhead, which is reducing debt. Now, if you didn't see last week's message, just to see the debt snowball, which Dave Ramsey is the great financial teacher, and this is his concept, and I just put it into action on video. It is one of the most profoundly powerful ways to get out of debt. It is the best way. And so we do the debt snowball. You can see that on last week's message. And then we talk about building a reserve fund. Any good business has a cash reserve fund. And so once you pay off all your debt, with the exception of your home, at that point, we've got a $1,000 emergency fund. We've paid off all of our debt but our home by getting crazy and attacking it, paying off the debt. And then we're going to build the reserve fund, which would be 3 to 6 months living expenses that we set aside in a money market fund. We don't touch it, and that is our reserve fund. That's taken us up to this point. Now today we'll talk a little more specifically about how do we do that through month-to-month budgeting.
Okay. Now I know, before we get into budget, there are some other things. What would you recommend on like a planning, especially for young couples with young children and things like that? And interested in hearing what would be some ideas there for me.
Well, that's a good question. Before we even get into budgeting, 2 things that we didn't cover in the weekend that would be important is I would encourage people. I'd encourage you to get a will. I think it's something like 80% of people don't have one, and especially if you're married and have kids, you need to do that. And we start there. Secondly, planning. The plans that diligently lead to profit. If you have a family, especially, or someone that's depending on your income, make sure that you get some life insurance. So many people don't have it. Most experts, Sam, recommend 8 to 10 times your annual income in what's called term life insurance. Whatever you do, don't let someone sell you whole life.
Okay, so term, not whole life.
Term insurance, very inexpensive. So if your income is $20,000 a year, you'll want to insure yourself for about $200,000. If your income is $60,000 a year, you'll want to insure yourself for around $600,000. It's not very much money, $15, $20, $25 a month for people who are younger. Lock it in 20 or 30 years term and get that taken care of.
You know, it's funny, Craig. I'm 30 years old, 3 kids, and I got lots of peers and people in my age group that I know that, man, do not have any plans for what happens if you and your wife pass away, and what are you going to happen with your kids? And man, it could really make things really a lot better.
As pastors, we do it all the time. I mean, we do funerals all the time for the 32-year-old with 3 kids who didn't see it coming, and his wife is broke and no means of supporting the family, and so it's important.
One of the greatest means of support for your family would be to take care of that stuff. Today.
Get that stuff taken care of. Now let's talk about budgeting.
So budgeting. Now, Craig, everybody's scared of the B word, budget. Don't get me into a budget. You're gonna why are people scared of a budget?
Well, a lot of people have tried and it didn't work out, and so like this didn't work for me. I think though the biggest problem, Sam, is that it boils down to an attitude deal. That most people, when they think of the word budget, they think of boring. They think of penny pinching. Oh my gosh, we can't spend this. And they think of it as real restrictive and limiting. Kind of like the difference between saying, I'm dieting. That doesn't sound very much fun. That sounds like, well, I can't eat anything. Versus saying, I'm eating healthily. It's really the same goal, but a different perspective. And with a budget, rather than seeing it as something that cramps your style, what I hope people will see it as is something that sets you free. Absolutely. That we get control of our spending, and that it doesn't mean that we don't ever spend or have fun. It means that when we do, we don't worry about it because we plan for it. And we can go out, we've got blow money that we can go and do something fun, and it's there and everything else is taken care of. And so it alleviates the worry, the fear, the tension.
Absolutely.
We're going somewhere on purpose.
I remember Jamie and I, my wife, we love to go out to dinner and have dinners together. And before we got set up on a budget, we'd always say, well, can we go? Can we do this? Well, I guess. We haven't spent this money here, and so let's just go and we'll see what happens. But after we got on that budget, it was like, absolutely, we can go. We got, $50 in this account. Let's go out to eat and let's go enjoy a great dinner.
Sweet. And so where are you taking us?
Well, we'll have to see.
Okay.
So budgeting. What are some things? How do I get started with a budget? A lot of people don't even know where to start.
Yeah. First thing that people want to do is we need to make sure we track where our money has been going. And we need to figure that out first before we do anything else. Where has the money been going? And so really the easiest way to do this is to get a computer program. Some good ones would be Quicken, Microsoft Money, QuickBooks. I use Quicken, been using it for years. What do you use?
I use Quicken as well.
Yeah. I think all of them are equally good. And what you do, a lot of people are intimidated by it. Set it up. It takes 10 minutes to install it. And then you just go start inputting from today forward what you're spending money on. And for instance, if I ask you, how much did you spend last month on groceries? How hard would it be to tell me exactly?
I could tell you that quick.
How fast?
I could tell you right now, we spent actually $120 over budget last month. So we were bad. Our eyes were bigger than our stomach last month.
So, but I mean, you click a button and it tells you exactly.
2 seconds.
Yeah. If I ask you, what did you spend in October 2004? What did you give to charity?
I can find out for you.